In this video, I'm going to tell you the 8 things that I wish I knew before I started a business. And for those of you who already have a business, this is a great checklist to go over to validate whether or not you are in the right place for your enterprise. And if you've already started a business, this is a really great checklist to go through in case you've forgotten something that's essential to the success of your enterprise. Number one, ask yourself this question. Why are you starting your business? Now, often you might see online people starting their business because they hate their boss, or because they've seen a new trend, or they've been inspired by the latest and greatest entrepreneurs. But the reason why you're starting a business is going to be as important as the business itself. Now, the 2 most common reasons why people start a business is because they have experienced a problem which they believe that they can solve, or they've seen a problem and are very close to a problem which they believe they can solve. But that is where your why should start from. It should start because you want to help a group of people solve a problem. So I've recently started a new e-commerce business. It's a marketplace for young entrepreneurs. And the problem that we're solving is that we know that when young entrepreneurs start a new business and they've got their products and services, it's very difficult to attract new customers and to break into the market. So we created a marketplace, almost an Amazon for kids businesses, where we can amplify the availability of their products and services without them having to worry about all of the heavy lifting it requires to create a new website and to create a marketing presence to generate the traffic, to create the sales which they need to make their business successful. And this leads us on to the second thing you should be considering when starting a business, which is ensuring that, number 1, you have a big enough problem to solve, and that the problem you are solving and the solution you are providing is a pain pill problem, not a nice to have. So I was speaking with a personal trainer recently, and I asked him, how's the fitness industry going, and how's it going in the personal training market, and how are you getting your customers, and what problems are you facing? And he said to me that during the cost of living crisis, which we're experiencing here in the UK, it's now June 2023. That the first thing to go when people are looking at their budgets is his service. And he said he realized, and he was perfectly aware, that the service he was offering was a nice to have. It wasn't essential to people's lives. People didn't view personal training as being essential to their lives. So when they're going through their budgets and deciding what to cut for the month, he knew that he'd be on top of the list. So what did he do? He pivoted his personal training business to a demographic which he knew would have a big enough surplus income at the end of the month to be able to afford his services. But also, to make it more essential in their lives, he didn't position it around fitness and aesthetics. He positioned it around longevity and mobility. So he was targeting a slightly older generation, perhaps who were closer to retirement, who now wanted to consider being able to play with their grandkids and get around on their own, and just being able to be mobile on a day-to-day basis without having their body letting them down. And in that way, he subtly repositioned his personal training business from being about looking good in the mirror to feeling good and having a longer life. The third thing that I knew when I started my business, but I wish someone had really impressed this upon me, was getting your priorities straight. Now, no matter how you view this, starting a business will take a considerable amount of time. Think about a rocket which goes up into space. There is a escape velocity that rocket requires in order to get into orbit. When you're watching TV and you're seeing this spaceship take off, it creates a blast, there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of energy expended to get this thing off the ground. And the same thing is true with a business. So the question I've got for you is, what are you willing to stop doing so that you then have the time, capacity, and energy to be able to get your business off the ground? So if you need to be on WhatsApp all day, scrolling through Instagram and making sure that you catch up on your latest box set, then chances are you will not have enough time to start a business. And this is assuming that you are starting a business potentially alongside full-time employment or something else that you're doing, other responsibilities that you've got in life. Starting a business is a big risk, but the way in which to mitigate that risk is through preparedness. By looking at your life currently and thinking, do I actually have time to start this business? Or how much time can I dedicate towards my business? Now, you may not have 40 hours a week, you may not even have 20 hours a week, but you may actually have 5 hours a week to dedicate towards your business. And that will be a great starting place. That gives you enough time to validate your original idea, to speak to customers, to put up a website and see if anyone clicks, to speak to friends, family, and other people in the marketplace to determine whether or not the thing that you have goes back to one of my original suggestions and really solves a problem for them. And closely related to time is number 4, which is productivity. If you go anywhere online and look up tips for running a business, you'll very quickly run into a number of productivity hacks. And one of the most useful approaches that I've found to increasing your productivity is actually a combination of 2 productivity laws and rules, which I'll actually make a separate video on, but I'll touch on briefly here. And that is combining the Pareto Principle with Parkinson's law. So the Pareto Principle is the 80-20 rule. It essentially suggests that 80% of the important output that you require in your business only comes from 20% of the activities, and the rest of it is noise. And because business is very much about experimentation, we often don't know which 20% is giving us the 80% return. So that's why using basic measures to track the activity in your business and the work that you're doing is really important, so that you know what is working for your business and what isn't. And then there's Parkinson's law, which says that tasks will expand to fill the time given. So what does this mean? If you say the proposal will take a day, then you will allow all of the distractions and the pings on your phone and the random phone calls to distract you away from your core objective. But if you're giving yourself an hour and you know that that task is time bound, you will shut off all of the distractions so that you can essentially meet this deadline. And we all know that deadlines are a great way for the human brain to think about efficient ways to get things done. So for me, the best productivity hack is the combination of the Pareto Principle and Parkinson's law. So what it suggests is to find the 20% of things that you're doing which is giving you the greatest output, and then time box them, narrow them down into buckets of time so that they don't fill up your days, your weeks, your months, and your years. So you can become super efficient at the things which give you the most benefit in your business. So in my enterprise, when you boil it down, is an education business. We have 5 to 8 different potential customer types. So about 2 years ago, I deliberately wanted to find out which 20% of those 8 potential customer types were generating the greatest revenue for our business. So I viewed it as an experiment. I went out, we pitched all 8 different customer types, and we measured whether or not it was easy to generate the leads from them, the calls, the sales, the delivery, and whether or not they could repeat as customers, and what the order value was. So we took the next 18 months to whittle down those 8 customer types to the 4 which were the most closely aligned to our skill set, which meant that we could generate the most revenue and do it in the easiest way possible, so that both we had a great experience and our customers had a great experience. The 5th thing that I wish I was told a little bit earlier was whether or not I wanted to scale a business or have a lifestyle business. Now, there are loads of key differences, but I want to hone in on just 2. If you want to scale a business, you will at some point have to become a leader, not just a founder, solopreneur, but you will have to onboard a team who will require leading. If you just want to run a lifestyle business, maybe you'll have a team, maybe not, but you can run a lifestyle business as a solopreneur, and you will not really need to have many leadership skills because you're leading yourself. And you won't have to have leadership skills in the traditional sense. Yes, you'll have to lead yourself, but you won't have to manage and lead people. Now, the reason why this is important is because starting a business requires different skills to scaling a business. Starting a business is all about finding a solution to a problem, coming up with a compelling service or product, and being able to repeat that process by making it profitable, and being able to repeat the sales and make some profit. Whereas scaling a business is really about onboarding people and being able to manage them, hold a vision, and provide a leadership trajectory for the enterprise that inspires those individuals along that journey, which sounds great. But you may not have those skills to start with, and some people don't actually want to lead a team. And that's the bit that you've got to decide. I've got a friend of mine who started loads of different businesses in his past, and in his current business, he's really starting to get some traction. And he told me that, and because he's a little bit unstructured, he told me that he needs to bring people on board to help give him structure. And I said, well, actually, it's probably the other way around. You need to provide structure to the team and develop a bunch of leadership skills so that you can hold on to that team and get the very best out of them. Now, he doesn't necessarily have the leadership skills now, but I told him if that's where you're going, then you should start going on some leadership programs, reading books about leadership, and putting your head in that space so that you're ready to get the best out of your team. The sixth thing that I wish I knew before I started a business was in defining your unfair advantage. What is it that you know about that marketplace? What is it you know about your customers? Or what skill set do you have? What insight do you have that the competition doesn't or wouldn't have, that enables you to get into the marketplace and to create something which is unique that sells to a point where you can scale and generate profit? Because here's the thing, if you don't have an unfair advantage, if you don't have something which can differentiate you in a very unique way, all that will happen is that you will go in, validate a particular part of the market, and then competitors will rush in, which is a very normal thing to happen. And actually it's a signal that you are doing the right thing and that there is a market. However, if competitors come into the market and you cannot amplify that unfair advantage, that particular thing that you have over your competitors, then they may just wipe you out. Some people in business refer to this as having a moat around a castle, which makes it defensible. So back in the day, when kings and queens lived in castles and they were under attack, they would create a moat around the castle, which made it more difficult for their competition or their enemies to attack the castle and take them over. So a similar analogy is used in business, and to consider what is your moat, what makes you defensible, what can protect your business against the competitors if you have proven that there is a market to be had. When I first started our organization, Ultra Education, the thing that I realized was going to be under my control was the creation of a brand. So the brand that you see on my chest and in the light behind us is a brand which is now recognized in the space of kidpreneur education and youth enterprise education. The term ultra is synonymous, at least in the UK, with the education of young people around enterprise and entrepreneurship. And that's taken about 10 years to do. But what it does is it's created a moat around our business so that if other people come in with a carte blanche offering, that we now have a trusted brand that we can trade on. Now, the seventh thing that I wish someone had told me before I started a business was whether or not I needed funding for that business and how much funding I needed. Now, this is a little bit like a piece of string. No one ever knows exactly how much funding you need, but you can expect different finance requirements from different business models. So for example, if we go back to my personal trainer friend, if you are starting a business in fitness and you are essentially the service, you are delivering the sessions, the training programs, the workouts, then to be honest, you don't really need much funding to get going. A business which is service-led and is delivered by the individual, by the solopreneur, is based on the skill and experience of that individual to deliver that service. On the flip side, if you are going to start an app business, and I mean app, not website, because websites today are pretty cost-effective, but app development still isn't. There are loads of free tools you can use to build a pretty amazing website, or if you are paying for premium services like a Shopify or WordPress and you need to get premium themes or plugins, most of that is pretty affordable. However, if you want to start a business where the offer is centered around a mobile app, we are still today not in the place where you can get loads of free resources to develop and publish a mobile app. Developing an app either takes the time, developing an app either takes your individual expertise if you can code, and lots of people out there can, and if you can't, then there are loads of websites out there that can teach you to code and to build an app. There is a learning curve if it isn't something that you've done before, but it is absolutely possible. The other alternative is to pay for a mobile app to be developed. Now, if you go out into the marketplace, a mobile app can cost anything from a few £100s to a few £100,000. But from my experience, what I've learned is that it's not just about building an app, it's about maintaining the app. When you are building any kind of product, you are building it based on a number of assumptions. And then when you launch that product into the marketplace, you'll realize that some of your assumptions are correct and some of them aren't. The assumptions which aren't correct will require further development. If you cannot develop those additional features and functions of the mobile app yourself, that will come at an additional cost. And not only is product development a unique and acquired skill, but once you've worked out what you need to be developed for the product, the features and functions, you're going to need a software developer to commit the code and to make it all work, and to stay on top of any bug fixes, any updates, and just a product roadmap, which is going to essentially make the app business a success, because you are going to be iterating based on customer feedback, and you need someone to actually develop those changes. Now, again, this is something you could do yourself. It is a steep learning curve, but it is possible. However, if you don't have that capacity to learn a new skill, then for an app business, it is something that you're going to need funding for, and considerable amount of funding. You're going to need a runway, which is the term they use in the startup world, to be able to pay for the costs it takes to develop a product before you're able to monetize it so that it can break even and then become profitable. And then the eighth thing that I wish I'd known before I started my business was that it is longer term than you think. So lots of entrepreneurs will start their business with the ambitious assumption that they are going to hit X pounds in revenue or X number of users or sales or whatever it might be within a certain period of time. Whatever you've assumed that amount of time is, you can absolutely add another few years to it. Not because you're not capable, but because there are going to be so many known unknowns and unknown unknowns that are ahead of you that it's so difficult, almost impossible to predict where the market is going to be for your product and where you're going to be in life and where your customers are going to be in response to the product or service that you developed. There are just too many unknowns. And the best way to prepare for this is to expect things to take longer than you thought to get off the ground, to break even, to become profitable, to see the success that you've planned. Now, I'll always go back to, if you're doing something that you love and you're genuinely passionate about, you will stay the course. Whereas if you're just in it for the money, then money won't be a strong enough motivating factor for you to stick around, and you won't have a reason, you won't have a strong why to stay in that business, to stay in that sector until you can reach profitability. But the magic to staying the long term is the compound benefits that you will gain being in that industry for that period of time. And what do I mean by this? We talked earlier on about a brand, and brands aren't built overnight, but if you do have a strong, trusted, defensible brand, that is something that you can absolutely trade on. And a brand is built through all of the micro interactions that you have with your customers, with the market, that grow into this thing called trust, this thing called credibility. And that simply takes time. But once you have it, there's huge leverage in that. The other thing that compounds is your personal insight and experience into a market, which potentially will turn you into a thought leader. And once you become a thought leader in the space, you'll be asked by journalists, by other writers and bloggers to talk about your particular sector because you'll have a unique perspective on it. And commercially, the compounding of that insight and those perspectives that you have go into the product and service that you are putting out into the market to make it better, to anticipate what might be coming just around the corner, to deepen the value that you are offering your customers and clients, and ultimately giving your business the best chance of success. So which one of those 8 tips before starting your business did you find most useful? Do let me know in the comments below. And if you're already in business, what would you have added onto the list? What things did you learn along the way that you wish you knew when you started? And that's it for today's video. I'll catch you on the next one. Ultra and out.